My coworker kept sabotaging my work. She didn't know I was recording. The notification sound from my laptop made my stomach drop. Another file corrupted. I stared at the screen, watching 3 weeks of campaign analytics dissolve into digital confetti, and felt that familiar knot of dread tighten in my chest. This was the 4th time this month. Oh no, Maya. Not again. Sarah's voice carried across our shared workspace, dripping with fake concern. She appeared at my cubicle within seconds, coffee mug in hand, wearing that practiced expression of sympathy I was starting to recognize. The Morrison presentation? The Morrison presentation, I confirmed, my voice flat. 23 slides of market research, consumer behavior analysis, and ROI projections for our biggest client. Gone. Just like the Hendricks proposal last week, and the social media calendar the week before that. You really should back up your work more often, Sarah said, settling her hip against my desk. I mean, I know you've been stressed lately with the promotion review coming up in December, but these technical issues. The way she said it made my skin crawl. Like I was some incompetent intern instead of a marketing coordinator who'd increased client retention by 34% this quarter. Sarah had been my friend for 2 years, or so I thought. We'd grabbed drinks after work, complained about management decisions, even covered for each other during sick days. But something had shifted when rumors started circulating about the senior marketing manager position opening up. Something cold and calculating had crept into her voice whenever she mentioned my recent struggles. The file was fine at 6 p.m. yesterday, I said, opening my backup folder. Empty. I definitely saved it to the shared drive. Technology, right? Sarah laughed, but there was something sharp in it. Good thing the client meeting isn't until Thursday. You've got what, 47 hours to recreate everything? Should be doable. 47 hours. She knew the exact timeline without checking her calendar. I watched her walk back to her desk, her blonde hair catching the fluorescent lights, and something clicked into place. The missing files always happened on Wednesdays, right before major presentations. The meeting room changes that somehow only affected my calendar. The way she'd started questioning my work ethic in front of our supervisor, Rebecca, with comments like Maya's been leaving early lately when I'd stayed until 8 p.m. the night before. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca, need to discuss the Morrison delays. My office at 3. Everything okay? Sarah called out, not even looking up from her screen. That's when I knew. The timing was too perfect, her concern too rehearsed. Sarah wasn't just a concerned colleague, she was sabotaging me. Systematically, carefully, professionally. I glanced at the small Amazon package sitting on my desk, the one I'd been too paranoid to open in front of her. Inside was a tiny recording device I'd ordered on impulse after the 3rd technical malfunction. I thought I was being crazy, letting stress and competition get to my head. But sitting there, watching Sarah type away with barely concealed satisfaction, I realized my paranoia might have been instinct. The senior marketing manager position came with a $95,000 salary and oversight of 3 major accounts. Sarah wanted it. And she was willing to destroy our friendship and my career to get it. I opened the package under my desk, hand steady despite my racing heart. If Sarah wanted to play games, I'd make sure I knew the rules. The recording device was smaller than I'd expected, about the size of a thumb drive with a tiny clip attachment. I palmed it while walking to Rebecca's office, my heart hammering against my ribs. The hallway felt longer than usual, past the break room where Sarah and I used to split overpriced salads, past the conference room where she'd congratulated me on the Hendricks account just 3 months ago. Rebecca's door was open, but her expression was closed off. Sit down, Maya. I'd known Rebecca Chen for 18 months, ever since she'd transferred from the Seattle office. She was fair but direct, the kind of manager who remembered your birthday but wouldn't hesitate to call out sloppy work. Right now, she looked tired. This is the 3rd major file corruption this month, she said, pulling up what looked like an incident report on her screen. IT says there's no virus, no system issues. The files are just vanishing. I know how it sounds. It sounds like someone's not following proper backup protocols. Rebecca's voice was gentle but firm. Maya, your work quality has always been exceptional. The Kinder campaign exceeded projections by 22%. But these technical issues, the missed deadlines. My stomach dropped. What missed deadlines? Rebecca's eyebrows rose slightly. The Hoffman Industries social media calendar was due last Friday. When you didn't submit it by end of day, I had to reassign it to Sarah over the weekend. She pulled together something last minute. The room went cold. I'd submitted that calendar on Thursday afternoon, a full day early. I had the email confirmation in my sent folder. Rebecca, I submitted that Thursday at 3:47 p.m. I can show you. There's nothing in the project management system. She turned her monitor toward me. The Hoffman project showed overdue reassigned TOS Martinez in red letters. Submit date, blank. I stared at the screen, my mouth going dry. Someone deleted my submission. Maya. Rebecca's tone was patient but strained. I know the promotion review is creating pressure for everyone, but these conspiracy theories aren't helping your case. Conspiracy theories. The words hit like a slap. I thought about Sarah's perfectly timed appearances after each malfunction, her helpful suggestions about backing up work, her casual comments about my stress levels. How she always seemed to know exactly when things went wrong before anyone else did. Can you check the system logs? I asked. There should be a record of when files are deleted or modified. IT already looked into it after the Morrison file disappeared. No unusual activity detected. Rebecca closed the laptop. Look, I need to be direct with you. The senior marketing manager position requires someone who can handle high-stakes projects without technical difficulties derailing timelines. These issues are becoming a pattern. A pattern. Sarah had created a pattern, a documented trail of my supposed incompetence. I wondered how long she'd been planning this, how many small sabotages I hadn't even noticed. I need the Morrison presentation by Wednesday at 10 a.m., Rebecca continued. Non-negotiable. And Maya? Maybe consider keeping physical backups going forward. Old school, but reliable. I nodded, not trusting my voice. As I walked back to my desk, I caught Sarah glancing up from her computer. She quickly looked away, but not before I saw something that chilled me, satisfaction. She was enjoying this. I sat down and discreetly clipped the recording device to the inside of my cardigan collar. If Sarah thought she could systematically destroy my career, she was about to learn that I wasn't going down without a fight. My phone buzzed with a calendar notification. Team meeting, conference room B, 4 p.m. I hadn't received any meeting invitation. I grabbed my laptop and headed to conference room B, my pulse quickening. The recording device felt warm against my collarbone, a small reminder that I wasn't completely defenseless anymore. Through the glass walls, I could see Rebecca setting up her laptop while Sarah arranged papers at the far end of the table. Maya. Sarah's voice was bright, almost musical. I'm so glad you could make it. I know you're swamped with recreating the Morrison presentation. I slid into a chair across from her, noting how she positioned herself next to Rebecca. I didn't receive a calendar invite. Oh, that's weird. I sent it this morning. Sarah pulled out her phone with practiced efficiency. Maybe your Outlook is acting up again? You know how these technical glitches seem to follow you around. Rebecca looked up from her screen. Sarah called this meeting to discuss workload redistribution. Given the recent project delays, we need to reassess our Q4 deliverables. My chest tightened. What kind of redistribution? Sarah leaned forward, her expression perfectly crafted, concerned but professional. Well, I've been thinking about the Morrison account specifically. Since the presentation file got corrupted again, and with your ongoing technical difficulties, maybe it would be better if I took point on Thursday's client meeting? Absolutely not. The words came out sharper than I intended. Morrison is my account. I've worked with them for 8 months. Of course, and you've done amazing work with them, Sarah said smoothly. But Rebecca, you saw how upset Tom Morrison was last month when Maya's laptop crashed during the quarterly review. He specifically asked me afterward if there was a more reliable point of contact for future meetings. That was a lie. Tom Morrison had been understanding about the laptop issue, a genuine hardware failure that IT had confirmed. But sitting here, watching Sarah weave her fiction with such confidence, I realized she'd probably been laying groundwork for months. Little comments, carefully planted seeds of doubt. Rebecca rubbed her temples. Maya, is it possible for you to finish the presentation by tomorrow morning? If we're going to make any changes to account management, I need to see that you can deliver under pressure. Tomorrow morning? I stared at her. You said Wednesday at 10 a.m. 5 minutes ago. The client moved the meeting up, Sarah interjected, checking her phone. Tom's assistant called while you were in Rebecca's office. Something about a board meeting conflict on Thursday. I took the liberty of confirming the new time, tomorrow at 11 a.m. My hands clenched under the table. She was accelerating the timeline, boxing me into an impossible corner. Recreating 23 slides of detailed analytics in 18 hours was technically possible, but barely. You should have consulted me before confirming anything with my client, I said. Sarah's eyes widened with manufactured hurt. I was just trying to help. Rebecca, I'm worried about Maya's attitude lately. She's been really defensive, almost paranoid about collaboration. Paranoid. There was that word again, another brick in the wall she was building around me. I watched Rebecca's expression shift slightly, saw her filing away Sarah's comment for future reference. I'll have the presentation ready, I said quietly. And I'll handle my own client communications going forward. Perfect. Sarah smiled, but her eyes remained cold. I'm sure everything will work out exactly as it should. As we filed out of the conference room, Sarah lingered behind to chat with Rebecca about quarterly budgets. I caught fragments of their conversation, something about stress responses and team dynamics, and felt my stomach twist. Back at my desk, I pulled up the Morrison account files and started rebuilding 8 weeks of work from scratch. But this time, I wasn't working alone. The recording device had captured every word of Sarah's performance, every calculated manipulation. 18 hours until the presentation. But I was done playing defense. The Morrison presentation was ready by 10:47 p.m., but I didn't go home. Instead, I sat in the darkened office, watching the cleaning crew make their rounds while I planned my next move. The recording device had captured Sarah's performance perfectly, but I needed more than one meeting's worth of manipulation. I needed a pattern so clear that even the most skeptical HR representative couldn't dismiss it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Presentation looks great. Found your laptop unlocked and took a peek. Few small typos on slide 12. Fixed them for you. S. My blood turned to ice. I'd locked my computer before the meeting, I was absolutely certain of it. I pulled up the Morrison file, scrolling frantically to slide 12. The revenue projections had been changed from $2.4 million to $240,000. A decimal point shift that would make me look incompetent in front of our biggest client. But Sarah had made one crucial mistake. She'd texted me about it. I screenshotted the message and immediately reverted the file to my backup version, then checked the document's revision history. Sure enough, the file had been modified at 6:23 p.m. while I was in the conference room. The user ID showed S. Martinez. She'd gotten sloppy. Overconfident. I forwarded the file to my personal email and saved copies to 3 different cloud services. Then I did something that would have seemed paranoid a week ago but now felt like basic survival. I ordered a small security camera from Amazon with overnight delivery. If Sarah was accessing my computer, I was going to catch her in the act. The next morning, I arrived at 7:15 a.m. to find Sarah already at her desk, looking suspiciously alert for someone who supposedly worked late helping the overwhelmed colleague. She glanced up as I passed, her smile radiating false warmth. Ready for the big presentation? You must be nervous after all those technical issues. Actually, I'm feeling pretty confident, I said, clipping the recording device to my blazer. Morrison specifically requested the detailed revenue breakdown on slide 12. Lucky thing I double-checked those numbers last night. Something flickered in Sarah's eyes, surprise, maybe concern. She'd expected me to walk into that meeting with corrupted data, to embarrass myself in front of Tom Morrison and his team. That's great, she said slowly. I'm sure Tom will appreciate your attention to detail. At 10:45 a.m., I walked into conference room A with my presentation loaded and my confidence restored. Tom Morrison and his CFO, Janet Walsh, were already seated with Rebecca. Sarah had positioned herself in the corner, notebook ready, presumably to document my failure. Maya. Tom stood up, extending his hand. Looking forward to seeing what you put together. Janet's particularly interested in the Q4 projections. I clicked to slide 12, watching Sarah from my peripheral vision. Based on current market trends and our campaign performance metrics, we're projecting $2.4 million in revenue growth through Q4. Janet leaned forward, impressed. That's a significant increase from Q3. What's driving the uptick? As I walked them through the data, I could feel Sarah's confusion building. This wasn't the disaster she'd orchestrated. Her carefully planted decimal point error was gone, replaced by solid projections that had Tom nodding approvingly. Excellent work, Maya, Tom said as we wrapped up. This is exactly the kind of strategic thinking we need for our product launch next quarter. Actually, Sarah interjected, I helped with some of the technical aspects last night. Maya's been having computer issues lately, so I wanted to make sure everything was accurate. The lie was so smooth, so perfectly delivered, that for a moment I almost admired her audacity. She was trying to claim partial credit for work she'd attempted to sabotage just hours earlier. But Tom Morrison was sharper than Sarah had anticipated. That's interesting. Maya and I reviewed these exact projections in our call last week. I don't remember you being on that meeting, Sarah. Sarah's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before snapping back into place. Of course. I just meant the formatting and technical setup. I felt a surge of satisfaction as Rebecca's eyebrows rose slightly. Sarah had overplayed her hand, and it was starting to show. After the Morrison meeting, I felt a dangerous surge of confidence. Sarah's failed sabotage attempt had backfired spectacularly, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't walking on eggshells around my own career. But that confidence almost became my downfall. The security camera arrived Wednesday afternoon while Sarah was in a budget meeting with Rebecca. I quickly installed the tiny device behind my monitor, angling it to capture anyone approaching my desk. The setup took less than 3 minutes, and I'd just finished adjusting the wireless connection when I heard familiar footsteps. How did the Morrison presentation go? Kevin from IT stopped by my cubicle, looking genuinely curious. Rebecca mentioned you've been having file corruption issues. That's pretty unusual for someone with your technical background. It went well, actually. I minimized the camera app on my phone. Though the file problems are still happening. Any idea what might be causing it? Kevin frowned, pushing his glasses up his nose. I've been thinking about that. The thing is, those specific types of corruptions? They're almost impossible to happen naturally. Files don't just vanish from shared drives without leaving traces in the system logs. My pulse quickened. What do you mean? Well, someone would need administrative access to completely scrub the deletion records. Or. He paused, glancing around to make sure we weren't being overheard. They'd need your login credentials. The words hit me like ice water. You think someone's been accessing my accounts? I'm not supposed to say this, but I pulled the detailed server logs yesterday after Rebecca asked me to investigate again. Your username was used to delete the Hoffman social media calendar at 11:47 p.m. last Friday. Problem is, the security badge data shows you left the building at 6:23 p.m. that day. I stared at him, my mouth going dry. Someone else deleted it using my login? That's what it looks like. But Maya. Kevin's voice dropped lower. Changing passwords won't help if they're watching you type them in. You might want to be more careful about when and where you log into things. After Kevin left, I sat frozen at my desk, replaying the last month in my head. How many times had Sarah been nearby when I unlocked my computer? How many coincidental coffee runs had she made past my cubicle? I thought about her text from Tuesday night, how she'd known exactly which slide contained the revenue projections. My phone buzzed with a Slack message from Sarah, coffee run. Want anything? Hot beverage. I looked across the office and saw her standing by the elevator, code already on, waving cheerfully. Through my peripheral vision, I noticed her computer screen was still active, unusual for someone about to leave the building. Sure, medium latte please, I typed back, then immediately stood up and walked to the bathroom. But instead of going inside, I ducked into the supply closet next door, leaving the door cracked just enough to see my desk area. Sarah returned within 90 seconds, impossibly fast for any actual coffee run. She glanced around the office, confirmed I wasn't at my desk, then made a beeline for my computer. Even from 20 feet away, I could see her fingers flying across my keyboard. My camera app would be recording everything, but watching it happen in real time made my stomach churn. She worked with practiced efficiency, opening and closing windows, typing commands I couldn't see from this distance. After exactly 3 minutes, she returned to her desk and picked up her code again. I waited another 30 seconds before emerging from the supply closet, my hands shaking slightly. Sarah appeared from the elevator bank moments later, carrying 2 coffee cups and wearing the same bright smile she'd had all week. One medium latte for the presentation superstar, she said, setting the cup on my desk. You seem stressed. Everything okay? Just tired, I managed, accepting the coffee with steady hands. Long week. Tell me about it. Oh, by the way, I heard Rebecca might be moving up the deadline for the quarterly budget reports. Something about corporate wanting preliminary numbers by Monday instead of Wednesday. Another timeline compression. Another impossible deadline designed to make me fail. But this time, I had her laptop access recorded in high definition. Thanks for the heads up, I said. And thanks for the coffee. Sarah smiled wider. Of course. That's what friends are for, right? As she walked away, I checked my camera feed. The footage was crystal clear, Sarah's face, her hands on my keyboard, even the reflection of my computer screen in her glasses. She changed my password recovery email to an address I didn't recognize and accessed my shared drive permissions. I had her. Finally, completely, undeniably, I had her. But as I scrolled through the video, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. In the background of the footage, barely visible in the corner of the frame, was Rebecca's office door standing open. And there, watching the entire interaction with an expression I couldn't quite read, was our manager. Rebecca had seen everything. The question was, what was she planning to do about it? The email from Rebecca arrived at 4:47 p.m., just as I was preparing to leave for the day. Subject line, urgent meeting, Friday 8 a.m. My stomach dropped as I read the single sentence. We need to discuss your recent performance concerns and some security issues that have come to my attention. Security issues. She knew. I glanced over at Sarah, who was packing up her desk with unusual haste. Our eyes met for a split second, and I saw something I'd never seen before, genuine fear. She knew that I knew that Rebecca knew. The careful house of cards we'd all been building was about to collapse. Working late again? Sarah's voice was strained, missing its usual artificial sweetness. You really should get some rest before tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be an interesting day, I replied, saving my work to 3 different backup locations. The irony wasn't lost on me that Sarah had actually taught me better security habits through her sabotage. That evening, I sat in my apartment reviewing the camera footage for the dozenth time. Sarah had accessed my computer for exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. The video showed her changing my password recovery email to sarahmartinez.backup@gmail.com, accessing my calendar to delete the Hoffman project submission, and, most damning, opening a notepad file where she'd written what appeared to be a timeline of planned sabotages. I could make out fragments of her notes in the screen reflection, Morrison presentation, delete Thursday night, and quarterly reports, move deadline to Monday, inform R about Maya's stress levels. Rebecca. Sarah had been coordinating some of this with our manager. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We should talk before the meeting tomorrow. Parking garage level B2, 7:45 a.m. Come alone. S. The dramatic cloak and dagger routine would have been laughable if my career wasn't hanging in the balance. But something about the message felt different, desperate rather than calculated. Sarah's usual composed manipulation had cracked, and I wasn't sure what lay underneath. I arrived at the parking garage at 7:43 a.m., my phone set to record and the memory card from my desk camera safely stored in my purse. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows between the concrete pillars, and the air smelled like exhaust and anxiety. Sarah was waiting by her silver Honda Civic, still dressed professionally but missing her usual armor of perfect makeup and confident posture. She looked like she'd been awake all night. How long have you known? She asked without preamble. Known what, exactly? I kept my voice steady, though my heart was hammering. Don't play games, Maya. The camera behind your monitor isn't exactly subtle once you know what to look for. She laughed bitterly. I saw the notification light blinking yesterday afternoon. My blood turned to ice. If she discovered the camera, she might have tampered with it, deleted the footage, or worse, planted evidence of her own. Why? I asked. We were friends, Sarah. 2 years of covering for each other, celebrating promotions, complaining about Rebecca's micromanagement. What changed? Sarah's composure finally cracked completely. What changed? Maya, you got the Morrison account because Rebecca thought you had fresh perspective. You got the Hendricks deal because the client liked your authentic approach. Do you know how long I've been here? 4 years. 4 years of watching people like you walk in and get handed opportunities I've been begging for. People like me? The phrase hit like a slap. Young, enthusiastic, willing to work for $60,000 because you don't have kids or a mortgage. I'm 34, Maya. This promotion isn't just a career boost for me, it's survival. My ex-husband stopped paying child support 6 months ago, and my daughter's daycare costs more than my rent. For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered the months of systematic torture, the nights I'd stayed awake wondering if I was losing my mind. So you decided to destroy my career instead of competing fairly? Fairly? Sarah's voice rose, echoing off the concrete walls. There's nothing fair about any of this. Rebecca already had her favorite picked out before the position was even posted. I just leveled the playing field. By making me look incompetent and paranoid. By showing everyone what happens when someone isn't ready for senior-level responsibilities. She straightened her shoulders, some of the old Sarah returning. And it worked, didn't it? Rebecca's been questioning your reliability for weeks now. I checked my phone. 7:52 a.m. In 8 minutes, I'd be sitting across from Rebecca with video evidence of everything Sarah had just confessed to. But something in Sarah's expression warned me that she wasn't done playing her hand. You know what the funny thing is? Sarah continued, pulling out her own phone. Rebecca asked me to document your erratic behavior. Every missed deadline, every technical malfunction, every defensive response in meetings. She wanted a paper trail. My stomach dropped. What are you saying? Sarah smiled, but it was hollow and desperate. I'm saying you might want to reconsider what you think you know about who's really pulling the strings here. The parking garage suddenly felt smaller, the concrete walls pressing in as Sarah's words sank in. Rebecca's been working with you? Working with me? Sarah laughed, sharp and bitter. Maya, Rebecca's been using both of us. She needed documentation showing you couldn't handle senior responsibilities, and she needed someone desperate enough to provide it. Guess who fit both roles perfectly? My mind raced back through every interaction with Rebecca over the past month. The tired expressions during our meetings, the way she'd mentioned patterns of technical difficulties, how quickly she'd accepted Sarah's explanations for missed deadlines. The promotion was never real. Oh, it's real. But it was never going to be yours. Rebecca's been grooming Jessica Chen from the Portland office for months. They're cousins, by the way, something about keeping family close during corporate restructuring. Sarah's voice cracked slightly. I found their email chain 3 weeks ago when Rebecca accidentally CC'd me instead of Jessica. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Jessica Chen, Rebecca's supposed rising star from Portland who'd been visiting our office monthly for cross-departmental training. I'd even helped train her on our client management systems, thinking I was being a good team player. So what was the point of all this? I gestured between us, my voice rising. Why destroy my work if the job was already filled? Because Rebecca needed a reason to restructure the entire department without looking like she was playing favorites. Your spectacular failure would justify bringing in fresh leadership from another office. My sabotage would prove I was unstable and vindictive when it came out. Sarah's laugh was hollow. We're both getting fired today, Maya. The only difference is you'll look like a victim and I'll look like a villain. I checked my phone again. 7:56 a.m. For minutes until I was supposed to walk into what I thought was my vindication meeting. How do you know all this? Sarah pulled up an email on her phone and handed it to me. The sender was Rebecca's personal Gmail account, sent to an address I didn't recognize. Date stamp, yesterday at 11:23 p.m., about 4 hours after our Morrison presentation. Maya performed better than expected today. Tom Morrison was impressed with the revenue projections. We may need to accelerate the timeline. Can you have Jessica here by Monday? I'll handle the Sarah situation tomorrow morning, then we can frame it as cleaning house after discovering the sabotage. 2 birds, 1 stone. My hand shook as I read the message twice. Who's the recipient? David Chen, VP of Regional Operations. Rebecca's uncle and Jessica's father. Sarah took her phone back. I've been forwarding Rebecca's emails to my personal account for 2 weeks, ever since I found out about Jessica. Insurance policy, you know? The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. Rebecca hadn't just been a passive observer of our conflict, she'd orchestrated it. The impossible deadlines, the convenient technical explanations, even her suggestion that I use old-school physical backups. She'd been setting up a narrative where both Sarah and I would self-destruct, leaving a clean opening for her family member. The meeting this morning, I said slowly. Rebecca's going to present your sabotage evidence and fire you, then use your actions to justify bringing in outside management. Exactly. And you'll be collateral damage, the unfortunate victim who couldn't handle the pressure of a toxic work environment. Sarah's voice was bitter but resigned. Rebecca gets to look like the decisive manager who cleaned up a messy situation. I looked at my watch. 7:58 a.m. In 2 minutes, I was supposed to walk into that meeting with my camera footage, ready to expose Sarah's sabotage. Instead, I'd be walking into a trap that would destroy both our careers while handing Rebecca exactly what she wanted. We have to work together, I said suddenly. Pool our evidence. Show HR that Rebecca's been manipulating both of us. Sarah stared at me like I'd suggested we fly to Mars. Work together? Maya, I've spent a month trying to destroy your career. You have video footage of me sabotaging your computer. Why would you want to help me? Because if we don't, Rebecca wins everything. I stared at Sarah in the dim parking garage light, my mind racing through the implications. What exactly do you have on Rebecca? Sarah glanced at her phone. 3 weeks of email forwards, including detailed instructions on how to document your performance issues. She even told me which specific technical failures would be most damaging to your credibility. She pulled up another message. Look at this one from October 15th. I leaned closer to read Rebecca's words, focus on the Morrison account specifically. Tom values reliability above creativity. A few well-timed technical difficulties during their presentations will raise concerns about Maya's ability to handle high-stakes clients. My stomach churned. October 15th was 2 days before my laptop had mysteriously crashed during Morrison's quarterly review, the incident Sarah had referenced in our team meeting yesterday. She gave you a playbook, I said, the full scope of the manipulation becoming clear. A very detailed playbook. Timeline suggestions, specific phrases to use when documenting incidents, even talking points for undermining your credibility in meetings. Sarah's voice was hollow. I thought I was fighting for my survival, but I was just Rebecca's puppet. 7:59 a.m. 1 minute until the meeting that would destroy both our careers. Do you have copies of everything? I asked urgently. Sarah nodded. 43 emails total, including the organizational chart showing Jessica's start date as November 27th. That's next Monday, Maya. Rebecca's been planning this transition for months. My mind clicked through the numbers. November 27th was exactly 1 week after the promotion decision deadline. Rebecca could fire both of us today, claim the department needed immediate restructuring, and have her cousin installed as senior marketing manager before anyone in corporate could question the timeline. The camera footage I have shows you sabotaging my computer, I said slowly, but it also shows Rebecca watching from her office. She knew what you were doing and let it happen. More than that, she encouraged it. Look. Sarah pulled up another email. Tuesday night, after your presentation prep, Sarah, Maya seems to be recovering too quickly from the Morrison setback. We may need a more direct approach to ensure Thursday's presentation demonstrates her inability to handle pressure. That email was sent at 11:15 p.m. Tuesday. Sarah had accessed my computer and changed the decimal points 23 minutes later. We need to get to HR before the meeting, I said, pulling out my phone. If we present this together. No. Sarah grabbed my wrist. HR reports to David Chen, remember? Rebecca's uncle. Taking this to company HR is like asking the fox to investigate the henhouse. 8 a.m. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca, conference room A, don't be late. She's starting the meeting, I said, my voice tight with panic. What do we do? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, staring at the concrete wall behind my head. There's one person who outranks David Chen, she said finally. Mitchell Torres, the CEO. He's been pushing for departmental transparency after the Portland office embezzlement scandal last year. I remembered the company-wide emails about enhanced oversight and whistleblower protections. You think he'd listen? I think he'd be very interested to learn that his VP of Regional Operations is installing family members through manufactured crises. Sarah's expression hardened with determination. But we need to get to him before Rebecca spins this as a success story about decisive management. My phone buzzed again. Rebecca, waiting for you. She's going to fire you whether I show up or not, I realized. The meeting was never about evidence, it was about documentation. Sarah nodded grimly. Rebecca needs witnesses to her decisive action. Probably Kevin from IT to confirm the security breach, maybe Tom Morrison to discuss client confidence. 8:02 a.m. 2 minutes late for my own execution. Torres is in the Seattle office today, Sarah said, checking her phone frantically. Executive board meeting at 9 a.m. If we leave now, we can get there by 8:45. I looked toward the elevator that would take me to conference room A, where Rebecca was waiting to destroy my career with surgical precision. Then I looked at Sarah, the woman who'd spent a month systematically sabotaging my work but was now offering to risk everything to expose the truth. Rebecca's going to claim we both disappeared when confronted with evidence, I said. Probably. But Torres will have 43 emails showing premeditated manipulation, video footage of Rebecca allowing sabotage, and 2 employees willing to testify about systematic fraud. Sarah's voice grew stronger. That's either career suicide or the biggest corporate whistleblowing case this company's seen. 8:03 a.m. My phone rang. Rebecca's name on the screen. I looked at Sarah one last time. If we do this, there's no going back. There's already no going back, she replied. The question is whether we go down for Rebecca's crimes or our own. I declined Rebecca's call and headed towards Sarah's Honda Civic. The drive to Seattle should have taken 45 minutes, but Sarah was weaving through traffic like a woman possessed, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. I sat in the passenger seat, frantically organizing our evidence on my phone while trying not to think about what we were about to do. Call Rebecca back, Sarah said suddenly as we merged onto I-5. Act like you just woke up sick or something. Buy us time. My phone had been buzzing nonstop for the past 10 minutes. 7 missed calls from Rebecca, 3 from Kevin in IT, and 1 from Tom Morrison that made my blood run cold. Why would Tom be calling? Because Rebecca probably told him there's been a security breach involving his account. Sarah's voice was grim. She's building her narrative in real time. I called Rebecca back, putting the phone on speaker. She answered before the first ring finished. Maya, where the hell are you? We're all waiting in conference room A. I'm so sorry, I said, forcing my voice to sound weak and congested. I woke up with some kind of stomach bug. Food poisoning, maybe? I can barely get out of bed. Food poisoning. Rebecca's tone was flat, disbelieving. How convenient. I know the timing is terrible, but I'm literally. Save it. Tom Morrison is sitting here asking questions about unauthorized access to his client files. Kevin's pulled security logs showing your computer was compromised. And Sarah Martinez hasn't shown up either. Rebecca's voice turned ice cold. If you think disappearing is going to solve your problems, you're mistaken. The line went dead. Sarah and I looked at each other, the weight of what Rebecca had just revealed sinking in. She told Tom someone accessed his files, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. That's not sabotage anymore, that's data breach territory. Federal crime territory. She's escalating because we didn't show up to be executed quietly. Sarah's jaw was tight. Rebecca's going full scorched earth. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. Maya, they're saying you and Sarah stole client data together. I pulled the real logs. This doesn't make sense. Call me. Even Kevin knew something was wrong. But by now, Rebecca would have painted him as either complicit or incompetent for missing an obvious security threat. Exit here, I said suddenly, pointing to the downtown Seattle ramp. Tora's office is in the Columbia Center. We pulled into the parking garage at 8:52 a.m. The executive board meeting had already started, but Sarah had found Tora's assistant's direct line through the company directory. Ms. Rodriguez? This is Sarah Martinez from the Portland marketing team. I have urgent information about fraudulent activity involving VP David Chen that Mr. Torres needs to see immediately. I watched Sarah's face as she listened to the response. After 30 seconds, she hung up. Good news or bad news first, she asked. Bad news. Rebecca called ahead. Told Tora's office that 2 employees from her team are having mental health crises and might try to make false accusations to avoid termination. My heart sank. And the good news? Tora's assistant is Chen's ex-wife. Apparently their divorce involved some creative accounting that she's never forgotten. Sarah's smile was razor sharp. She's very interested in anything involving David Chen's family business arrangements. We rode the elevator to the 42nd floor in silence, both clutching our phones like lifelines. The evidence felt solid in my hands, video footage, email forwards, timeline documentation, but Rebecca had a 3-hour head start on controlling the narrative. The elevator doors opened to reveal a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and the sharpest business suit I'd ever seen. Sarah Martinez and Maya Chen, she asked. When we nodded, her smile turned predatory. I'm Elena Rodriguez, and you've just made my entire year. Mr. Torres will see you immediately. Mitchell Torres was younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-40s with the kind of calm intensity that made you understand how he built a tech company from startup to Fortune 500. He sat across from us in a conference room that overlooked the Seattle waterfront, his expression unreadable as Sarah finished walking him through Rebecca's email trail. So you're telling me, Torres said slowly, that my VP of Regional Operations orchestrated a departmental sabotage scheme to install his daughter in a management position, while my Portland manager documented the entire conspiracy via company email. 43 emails over 3 weeks, I confirmed, sliding my laptop across the table. Plus video evidence of the actual sabotage taking place while Rebecca watched from her office. Torres clicked through the footage, his jaw tightening as he watched Sarah access my computer. Ms. Martinez, you do understand you're confessing to criminal computer fraud? Sarah's voice was steady. Yes, sir. But I was following direct instructions from my supervisor, who told me it was part of a performance evaluation process. Performance evaluation. Torres pulled up one of Rebecca's emails. October 18th, make sure the Morrison presentation failure appears to be Maya's technical incompetence rather than deliberate sabotage. Tom Morrison's opinion carries weight with upper management. That's your idea of performance evaluation? Elena Rodriguez leaned forward from her position by the window. Mitchell, there's more. I pulled David Chen's corporate credit card records for the past 6 months. 17 dinners with Rebecca Chen, 8 with Jessica Chen, and a $3,200 charge at Nordstrom listed as recruitment consulting the same day Jessica's transfer was approved. My stomach dropped. David Chen had been paying for Rebecca's wardrobe while they planned this coup. The level of premeditation was staggering. Torres' phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened further. Rebecca Chen is downstairs in the lobby with Tom Morrison and Kevin Nguyen from IT. She's requesting an emergency meeting about industrial espionage and employee theft. She's bringing Tom here? I felt panic rising in my chest. She's going to make him think I stole his client data. Actually, Elena said, consulting her tablet, I think she's about to make a very serious mistake. Mr. Morrison's contract includes specific clauses about data security breaches. If Rebecca accuses you of accessing his files without authorization, she's legally required to report it to federal authorities within 24 hours. The room went quiet as the implications sank in. Rebecca was so focused on destroying Sarah and me that she was about to trigger a federal investigation into her own company. Torres stood up, straightening his tie. Elena, call legal and have them start drafting suspension letters for Rebecca Chen and David Chen. Effective immediately. He turned to Sarah and me. You two are going to sit here quietly while I go downstairs and listen to Rebecca hang herself. What about Tom Morrison? I asked, my voice smaller than I intended. Mr. Morrison is about to learn that his account manager has been the victim of systematic harassment designed to undermine client relationships. I suspect he'll be very interested in ensuring you receive appropriate support going forward. Torres paused at the door. Ms. Martinez, you'll still face consequences for the computer access, but cooperation in exposing fraud carries significant weight in these situations. As Torres left, Elena turned back to us with something approaching a smile. 23 years I've been waiting for David Chen to overreach like this. His daughter's about to have a very short career in corporate marketing. Through the conference room windows, I could see the Seattle skyline stretching toward the mountains. Somewhere 40 miles south, Rebecca was walking into an elevator, probably rehearsing her speech about decisive leadership and protecting company assets. She had no idea that her carefully constructed narrative was about to collapse under the weight of her own documented evidence. My phone buzzed with another text from Kevin. Maya, whatever's happening, the server logs don't match Rebecca's story. Stay strong. Sarah looked at me across the polished conference table. No matter how this ends, I owe you an apology that'll probably take years to deliver properly. I thought about that month of systematic torture, the sleepless nights, the creeping paranoia that had nearly destroyed my confidence. Then I thought about Rebecca's emails, the calculated manipulation of 2 employees she was supposed to support and develop. We'll figure it out, I said. After we watch Rebecca's empire crumble. 20 minutes later, Elena's phone rang. She answered with a crisp Rodriguez, then her eyebrows shot up as she listened. After a brief conversation, she hung up and turned to us with an expression I couldn't quite read. Rebecca just made her presentation to Torres, Elena said, settling back into her chair. She brought a printed timeline of your supposed crimes, Maya, complete with client impact assessments and financial damage estimates. My stomach clenched. How bad? She's claiming you and Sarah cost the company $847,000 in potential lost revenue through deliberate client data manipulation and breach of contract protocols. Elena consulted her notes. She also presented what she called psychological evaluation concerns suggesting you've been having a breakdown due to promotion pressure. Sarah leaned forward. What kind of psychological evaluation? Apparently she's been documenting your behavior patterns, Maya. Late arrivals, defensive responses in meetings, what she termed paranoid accusations about technology failures. She painted a picture of someone who cracked under pressure and recruited Sarah as an accomplice when the sabotage began. The calculated precision of it made me feel sick. Rebecca had been building a psychological profile designed to discredit anything I might say in my own defense. Even sitting here with evidence of her conspiracy, I could see how convincing her narrative would be to someone who hadn't seen the emails. There's more, Elena continued. She brought Tom Morrison as a character witness. He confirmed that you've seemed increasingly agitated during recent meetings and that yesterday's presentation felt unusually polished compared to your recent struggles. I felt my face flush. Tom Morrison, who I thought was satisfied with my work, had apparently been noting signs of instability for weeks. Rebecca had been coaching him to see my behavior through a specific lens. But here's what Rebecca didn't know, Elena said, her smile returning. Torres recorded the entire meeting. Every accusation, every financial claim, every psychological assessment. And then he asked her a very simple question. If Maya was having a breakdown severe enough to commit corporate espionage, why didn't you report it to HR or recommend counseling services? Sarah and I exchanged glances. That was the hole in Rebecca's story. If she genuinely believed I was unstable and dangerous, she had a legal obligation to intervene, not document my decline for later use. Rebecca's answer was that she wanted to give Maya every opportunity to recover on her own before escalating to formal disciplinary action. Elena's voice dripped with disdain. Generous management, protecting a struggling employee. Except the emails show she was actively making the situation worse, I said. Exactly. Torres then asked Tom Morrison to step outside and played him selected portions of Rebecca's email instructions. Particularly the one from October 15th about ensuring your technical difficulties would raise concerns about your reliability. My heart stopped. He knows Rebecca was sabotaging me? He knows Rebecca was manipulating his perception of you to serve her own agenda. Tom Morrison is a very smart businessman, and he doesn't appreciate being used as a puppet in office politics. Elena checked her watch. In fact, he should be calling you right about now. As if summoned by her words, my phone rang. Tom Morrison's name on the screen. I answered with shaking hands. Hello, Mr. Morrison. Maya, I owe you a significant apology. Tom's voice was tight with controlled anger. I've just learned that my observations about your recent performance were influenced by deliberate misinformation from your supervisor. Mr. Morrison, Let me finish. Rebecca Chen has been feeding me selective information designed to undermine my confidence in your work. Information that I now understand was completely fabricated. I could hear him moving, probably pacing his office. Your presentation yesterday was excellent because your work has always been excellent. I was seeing problems that someone else created specifically to make me doubt your capabilities. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you for telling me that. I'm telling Torres that Morrison Industries wants you to remain our primary contact, and we're requesting a formal investigation into how our account was used as a weapon against our account manager. His voice hardened. Rebecca Chen won't be working with our company in any capacity going forward. After Tom hung up, I sat staring at my phone. One of the most damaging parts of Rebecca's case had just evaporated completely. Elena was watching me with something approaching maternal satisfaction. Torres is meeting with legal right now to determine whether Rebecca's actions constitute criminal fraud or just spectacular career suicide. The elevator dinged softly as Torres returned, his expression unreadable. Behind him walked a woman in a navy suit carrying a leather briefcase, corporate legal, judging by her demeanor. They settled across from Sarah and me while Elena pulled up what looked like a conference call screen. Ladies, Torres began, I've just had the most illuminating conversation with your manager. Rebecca Chen has presented a compelling case for your immediate termination and potential criminal prosecution. He paused, studying our faces. She's also unknowingly confessed to conspiracy, fraud, and violation of federal employment protection laws. The legal representative, her nameplate read Janet Reeves, General Counsel, opened her briefcase and pulled out a tablet. Ms. Chen provided us with what she believed was evidence of your crimes. Instead, she's given us a detailed confession of her own misconduct. Sarah leaned forward. What do you mean? She presented financial documents showing the exact cost of each technical failure to company revenue, Janet explained. But those calculations could only be accurate if she knew in advance which projects would fail and when. No manager tracks potential losses from random computer problems with that level of precision. My breath caught. Rebecca's thoroughness had betrayed her. She'd been so focused on demonstrating the impact of my supposed incompetence that she'd revealed her foreknowledge of events that should have been unpredictable. Torres pulled out his phone. Elena, bring up Rebecca's presentation slide from 10 minutes ago. The conference screen displayed a PowerPoint slide titled Financial Impact Assessment, Maya Thompson Incidents. Below it was a detailed chart showing projected losses from the Morrison presentation delay, $89,000, the Hoffman calendar resubmission costs, $34,000, and something that made my stomach drop, anticipated Q4 client confidence reduction due to continued technical failures, $180,000. Anticipated, Janet emphasized. She's calculated financial losses from failures that haven't happened yet. That's not damage assessment, that's operational planning. Elena spoke up from her position by the window. It gets better. Rebecca also provided Torres with a written timeline of your psychological decline, Maya. Day-by-day observations going back 6 weeks, including predictions about when your breaking point would occur. Sarah's face had gone pale. She was following a script. All of it. The script she wrote herself, Torres confirmed. According to her documentation, she predicted you would crack under pressure and attempt to blame others by November 15th. That's today, by the way. The precision was chilling. Rebecca hadn't just been reacting to my behavior, she'd been manufacturing a timeline for my professional destruction, complete with projected dates for each phase of my supposed breakdown. Where is she now? I asked. Janet checked her tablet. Conference room C with David Chen and Kevin Nguyen from IT. They're reviewing server logs to support the criminal prosecution they're requesting. She looked up with a slight smile. Kevin's findings aren't supporting their narrative. What did Kevin tell them? That the deletion patterns are consistent with someone using administrative override commands, functions that require manager-level access to execute. Torres leaned back in his chair. Rebecca apparently went very quiet when Kevin explained that regular employees can't permanently scrub server logs the way your files were erased. My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. Maya, they're asking me to confirm that you could have deleted your own files. I told them that's technically impossible with your access level. Rebecca looks like she's going to be sick. Elena was monitoring something on her tablet. David Chen just requested an immediate conference call with the Portland office. Probably trying to expedite Jessica's transfer before this whole thing implodes. Too late for that, Janet said crisply. I've already filed an emergency injunction freezing all personnel changes in the marketing department pending investigation. Jessica Chen's transfer is suspended indefinitely. Torres stood up, straightening his jacket. Here's what's going to happen. Rebecca and David Chen are being suspended effective immediately. Sarah, you'll face disciplinary action for the computer access, but your cooperation in exposing this conspiracy will be taken into consideration. Maya, you're being placed on administrative leave with full pay while we conduct a formal investigation. Administrative leave? My heart sank. But I didn't do anything wrong. Standard protocol for investigation participants, Janet assured me. It protects you from retaliation while we document everything. You'll be back in a week, probably with a formal apology and a conversation about appropriate compensation for what you've endured. Elena's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her smile turned predatory. Rebecca just asked her assistant to book her flight to Portland for Monday morning. Apparently she's planning to personally oversee Jessica's transition. Torres and Janet exchanged looks. Someone should probably tell her, Torres said slowly, that Monday morning she'll be meeting with federal investigators about fraudulent use of company resources and conspiracy to commit employment fraud. I'll let her assistant know about the schedule conflict, Elena said sweetly, already dialing. The conference room felt surreal as Torres' phone rang, cutting through the tense silence. He glanced at the caller ID and his expression darkened. It's Rebecca, he said, putting the call on speaker. This should be interesting. Rebecca's voice came through crystal clear, that familiar tone of controlled authority I'd heard in 100 meetings. Mitchell, I need to speak with you immediately about the 2 employees who failed to appear this morning. Maya Thompson and Sarah Martinez have clearly coordinated their absence to avoid accountability. Torres leaned back in his chair, his voice neutral. I'm listening. I've discovered additional evidence of their collaboration. Sarah Martinez's computer shows deleted emails from Maya's personal account, suggesting they've been planning this data theft for weeks. Rebecca's confidence was chilling, she was still building her narrative in real time. I'm recommending we contact federal authorities immediately. The Morrison account breach alone constitutes wire fraud. I felt my hands clench involuntarily. Even now, with her conspiracy exposed, Rebecca was doubling down on destroying us. That's a serious allegation, Torres said carefully. What kind of evidence are we talking about? Kevin found communication logs between their workstations dating back 3 weeks. Maya was feeding Sarah client information, and Sarah was helping cover Maya's tracks by manipulating the server logs. Rebecca's voice gained momentum. Mitchell, these aren't just performance issues anymore. We're looking at organized corporate espionage. Janet Reeves was furiously taking notes, her eyebrows climbing higher with each fabricated accusation. Elena held up her tablet, showing a real-time email from Kevin. She's asking me to falsify communication logs. I'm recording this conversation. Torres' jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Rebecca, I need you to be very specific about these communication logs. What exactly did Kevin find? There was a brief pause, probably Rebecca consulting with David Chen. Internal message exchanges discussing client revenue figures that neither employee should have had access to. Strategic planning documents from accounts outside their assigned portfolios. Maya specifically requested Sarah's help with what she called cleaning up the digital trail from her Morrison presentation problems. The precision of the lies was breathtaking. Rebecca was creating evidence that didn't exist while making it sound technical enough to discourage close scrutiny. I see, Torres said. And Kevin confirmed all of this personally? Kevin's reviewing the technical details now, but the pattern is clear. Maya's been using Sarah as an inside accomplice since the promotion announcements began. Rebecca's voice turned sympathetic. Mitchell, I know Maya showed promise early on, but the pressure of senior-level consideration has clearly triggered some serious judgment failures. Sarah was gripping the edge of the conference table so hard her knuckles had gone white. Watching someone rewrite history while you sat helpless was a special kind of torture. Elena's phone buzzed with another message from Kevin. She's asking me to sign a falsified technical report. David Chen is here pressuring me to confirm evidence that doesn't exist. I'm refusing and documenting everything. Torres caught Elena's eye and nodded slightly. Rebecca, I think we need to meet in person to review this evidence. Can you come up to the executive conference room? Of course. I'll bring Kevin and the server documentation. David wants to be present as well to discuss departmental restructuring. Rebecca's satisfaction was audible. I know this is difficult, Mitchell, but swift action here protects the entire organization. Swift action, Torres repeated. Yes, I think that's exactly what we need. After he hung up, the room was silent for a long moment. Janet was reviewing her notes with the expression of someone who'd just watched a confession unfold. She's about to walk into this room expecting to present evidence of your crimes, Torres said quietly. Instead, she's going to find 2 federal investigators, a recording of her fraudulent accusations, and the employees she thought she'd destroyed. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Federal investigators? Elena smiled grimly. They arrived 5 minutes ago. Corporate fraud involving falsified evidence crosses several federal boundaries. She checked her watch. Rebecca should be stepping into the elevator right about now. The elevator chimed softly, and through the glass conference room walls, I watched Rebecca stride down the hallway with David Chen and Kevin trailing behind her. She carried herself with that familiar confidence, a leather portfolio tucked under her arm like she was heading into just another performance review. She had no idea she was walking into her own professional execution. Kevin looked pale and kept glancing at his phone. David Chen's usual swagger seemed forced, his jaw set in a way that suggested he knew something was wrong but couldn't quite identify the threat. Rebecca, meanwhile, looked almost triumphant. Before they get here, Torres said quietly, I want you both to understand what's about to happen. Rebecca's going to present what she believes is ironclad evidence against you. She'll expect me to authorize immediate termination and criminal prosecution. Instead, she's going to learn that federal investigators have been reviewing her own communications for the past hour. Federal investigators are already here? Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. Janet nodded toward a side door I hadn't noticed before. Agents Morrison and Black from the FBI's white-collar crime unit. They'd been listening to Rebecca's phone calls and reviewing the evidence we provided. Her attempt to fabricate server logs crosses into federal fraud territory. My stomach churned as footsteps approached in the hallway. Through the glass, I could see Rebecca checking her reflection in her phone screen, smoothing her hair before the big moment. The casual vanity of it felt obscene given what she was about to attempt. Torres stood and adjusted his tie. Elena, start recording. Janet, have the suspension paperwork ready. And you too, he looked at Sarah and me, don't say anything unless directly asked. Let Rebecca dig her own grave. The conference room door opened and Rebecca swept in, her professional smile bright and predatory. Mitchell, thank you for making time for this urgent matter. I know the board meeting schedule is, she stopped mid-sentence as she noticed Sarah and me sitting at the table. What are they doing here? David Chen's voice carried a note of panic that Rebecca seemed to miss. I thought it was important that Maya and Sarah hear the evidence against them directly, Torres said smoothly. Professional courtesy before we move forward with prosecution. Rebecca's smile faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. Of course. Transparency is important. She opened her portfolio with practiced efficiency. Kevin, why don't you walk us through the server analysis first? Kevin looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Mr. Torres, I need to clarify something about the technical findings. Just the facts, Kevin, David Chen interrupted sharply. What did the communication log show? Actually, Kevin said, his voice growing stronger, that's what I need to clarify. There are no communication logs between Maya and Sarah's workstations. The server records show standard departmental messaging, but nothing involving client data exchange or coordinated file manipulation. Rebecca's pen stopped moving across her notepad. Kevin, we discussed this downstairs. The deleted message chains. There are no deleted message chains, Kevin said firmly. I've run 3 separate forensic analyses since yesterday. Maya's computer shows evidence of external access using administrative overrides, but those commands could only be executed by someone with manager-level permissions. The color drained from Rebecca's face. You must have missed something. Run the analysis again. I've run it 6 times, Kevin replied, pulling out his own tablet. Including this morning when you asked me to confirm evidence that doesn't exist in our systems. Elena was typing furiously on her laptop, probably documenting every word. David Chen had gone very quiet, his eyes darting between Rebecca and the side door where I assumed the federal investigators were waiting. Torres leaned forward slightly. Rebecca, perhaps you could walk us through your version of events. Start with how you first became aware of the alleged conspiracy. Rebecca straightened her shoulders, clearly deciding to push forward despite Kevin's contradictory testimony. 3 weeks ago, I noticed Maya's performance declining significantly. Missed deadlines, technical failures, defensive behavior in meetings. When I investigated further, I discovered that Sarah had been helping Maya access client files outside her authorization level. Interesting, Torres said. And you have documentation of this investigation? Extensive documentation. Rebecca pulled out a thick folder. Timeline analysis, behavioral observations, financial impact assessments. I've been tracking the situation carefully to ensure we had sufficient evidence before taking action. Janet leaned forward. Ms. Chen, you mentioned financial impact assessments. Could you elaborate on how you calculated potential losses from random technical failures? Rebecca hesitated for just a moment. Standard risk analysis protocols. When employees experience repeated system issues, we project the potential client confidence impact. But these calculations are remarkably precise, Torres observed, consulting his own notes. You projected an $89,000 loss from the Morrison presentation delay 2 days before the actual delay occurred. The room went dead silent. Rebecca's professional mask was starting to crack around the edges. I think, Torres said quietly, it's time we brought in some additional perspective on this situation. The side door opened and two people in dark suits entered the conference room. The woman was tall with graying hair pulled back severely, while the man looked like he'd stepped out of a federal law enforcement training manual. Rebecca's face went from pale to ash gray in the space of a heartbeat. Agent Morrison and Agent Black, FBI White Collar Crimes Unit, the woman announced, showing her badge. We've been monitoring this conversation with Mr. Torres' cooperation. David Chin actually pushed his chair back from the table. FBI? Mitchell, what the hell is going on here? What's going on, Agent Morrison said, settling into a chair with practiced authority, is that we've been investigating a conspiracy to commit employment fraud, falsification of corporate records, and attempted obstruction of justice. She opened a tablet and turned it toward Rebecca. We have 43 emails detailing your systematic plan to sabotage Ms. Thompson's career and install your cousin Jessica Chin in a position she wasn't qualified for. Rebecca's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. David Chin looked like he was calculating the distance to the nearest exit. The emails alone would be sufficient for prosecution, Agent Black added, but Ms. Chen's attempt to fabricate server logs and coerce IT personnel into falsifying evidence elevates this to federal obstruction charges. Kevin spoke up from his corner of the table, his voice stronger now that backup had arrived. She asked me to create fake communication logs showing Maya and Sarah exchanging client data. When I refused, Mr. David Chin threatened my employment status. He pulled out his phone. I recorded the entire conversation. Torres turned to Rebecca with something approaching curiosity. 43 emails, Rebecca. 43 detailed instructions about how to destroy Maya's career and manipulate client perceptions. Did you really think you could delete everything from company servers without leaving traces? Rebecca found her voice, but it came out as a whisper. I was protecting the department. Maya wasn't ready for senior responsibilities. You were protecting a $95,000 job for your cousin, Agent Morrison interrupted. Jessica Chen's employment contract was signed 2 weeks before this promotion was even announced publicly. David Chin used company funds to pay for Rebecca Chen's consulting, wardrobe, and travel expenses related to the transition planning. I watched Rebecca's carefully constructed world crumble in real time. Her professional confidence, her manipulative charm, even her posture, everything collapsed as the weight of federal investigation pressed down on her. Maya Thompson, Agent Black turned to me. You'll need to provide testimony for our investigation, but you're not facing any charges. Your hidden camera footage provided crucial evidence of the conspiracy in action. Sarah cleared her throat. What about my computer access? I did sabotage Maya's work. Under direct instruction from your supervisor, who told you it was part of a legitimate evaluation process, Agent Morrison replied. You're looking at disciplinary action and mandatory cooperation with our investigation, but prosecution is unlikely given your victim status in this scheme. Torres stood up as Rebecca and David Chin were read their rights. Effective immediately, Rebecca Chin and David Chin are terminated for cause. Jessica Chen's employment offer is rescinded. Maya, you'll return to work Monday morning as acting senior marketing manager, pending completion of the federal investigation. As security escorted Rebecca past my chair, she stopped and looked at me with something between hatred and disbelief. You destroyed everything, she whispered. For what? A job title? I met her eyes steadily. You destroyed everything, Rebecca. I just recorded it. 6 months later, Rebecca Chin was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison for conspiracy and fraud. David Chin received 2 years and a $250,000 fine. I kept the senior marketing manager position permanently, with a $98,000 salary and oversight of Morrison Industries' expanded account. Sarah transferred to the Seattle office, and we've slowly rebuilt something resembling friendship, though it took months of careful conversations and shared therapy sessions to move past what happened between us. The recording device sits in my desk drawer now, next to a letter of commendation from Torres and a thank you note from Tom Morrison. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't trusted my paranoia that Wednesday morning. But mostly, I'm just grateful I learned to document everything. Rebecca was right about one thing: I wasn't ready for senior-level responsibilities back then. But surviving her systematic attempt to destroy me taught me exactly the kind of leader I never want to become.